Howdy. There we are again on another Saturday, TeleDynes live stream. And we're going to just get started here in just a minute, kind of getting everything together. All right. So go over a couple of channel updates as usual, and then get into just talking about some music, breaking down some songs, talk about modes a little bit. So yeah, I haven't had a video up since the delay pedal video, and that's just a lot of gigs this time of year in the summertime. Usually after Memorial Day, the gigs start to ramp up, and next month is definitely going to be you know, a little less on the video side of it. Hopefully, I can get at least one or maybe two out for next month. I've got another video coming very, very soon for. I was going to do this just Rockabilly riffs video, but that video got delayed for some technical issues that I had when I was recording it. But I do have the Bebopalula video coming out soon, and that's just essentially it's just going over the solos, and I mean that's the bulk of the song really. It's just a 1-4-5 in E, so there's not much to it structure-wise. But the solos are iconic to me anyway. So it was fun to learn them and write the tab for it and everything and try to figure out exactly what was going on. Then I have next week, and probably a couple other weeks too, I have gigs on the Saturday and I have to be out of here by 4 o'clock. So I'll be pushing the stream back a couple of hours, usually by 3 o'clock, and just do a kind of a short stream on those days. But so for today, so hopefully I'll have that video up next week. I'll have that video up next week, so I just have to finish the edit and it's pretty much done. Do some fun little B-roll with the TV effects and all that. That's always fun to do. So I've been going over learning a couple of different charts and trying to break down some songs here to show you an example of kind of the way I approach it. If I'm trying to learn a song, you have the chords, you have the melody. It's nice to have the melody if you can. And you can get a lot of that stuff online or fake books or stuff like that. But sometimes the chords are either wrong or not quite right, or they don't really they don't really resonate all that well with the melody of what you're singing, especially in the more jazzy stuff. So an example was a tune we started doing a little while ago called Angel Eyes by Sinatra, of course. And oh, yeah, you can see the chart there. So I always think like, okay, well, you got your C minor 7, you got your A7, and then of course this is the repeat symbol. Boom, boom, boom. You're just doing. But you can see this B flat on the bass. If you ever see that, that just means that the B flat note is in the bass, in the lowest. And you don't necessarily have to play that as the guitar player. That's really for the bass player, but you can. So you can do a walk down like, which is right here. C, there's the turnaround, right? C, C sharp, B flat, A7, G7. So I kind of altered this chord here. I played a sharp 5. Still a 7. I just like that tension that the sharp 5 has. Or whatever, however you want to play it. But, these chords here, when you're kind of coming up with your ideas of what you want to do and how you want to play the chords, feel free to, you don't have to follow. These things are kind of a guideline, really. They're not, it doesn't have to be 100% this, right? So like there at the end, when it comes to the turnaround, it says augmented seventh, which is this, but it's the same as it could be spelled as a G sharp 5, same thing. So that's the way I end up playing it. Especially when you're singing and you're backing up somebody that's singing. It's nice to have 3 or 4 notes being played, or notes kind of in the lower register of the guitar, so you're not like up here playing too high on the register. It's fine a little bit, but I always try to keep it somewhere in the mid-range, not too low so you get muddy, but not too high where it's just piercing out, through the mix, and you're not getting the meat of the chord for the singer. Anyway, let's see what else we got here. Move stuff around on the desktop here. So that was just an idea of when you can take a chart and break it down. Another one I had, I probably saw it here for a second, was the putting on the Ritz, and that's another one we just started doing as an instrumental. And that was kind of fun because we kind of do this little gypsy jazz approach thing to it. So it's whoops. And again, it's kind of finding, where you want to play these chords. F minor can be played here, can be played here, can be played here, of course. I always try to move things around just to kind of make it a little bit more interesting. Play this, play that, go all over the place with it. Oops. Oh, that's fine. So when I was figuring this stuff out, something that came to my attention the other day was, if you notice this, there's a, this is in the key of A flat, F minor, right? So C, B flat, A, there's an A here, or an A flat here, right? But when you're over this chord, C7 or C7 flat 9, whichever, there's no A there. There's no A in that chord. So how can there be an A there? So if you ever get confused with that kind of thing, what that's called is a neighboring note. It's basically all of these notes here, the C, the B flat, and the G, they're all in C7. That's the chord. So this it's just in there. It's fine. As long as the bulk of the notes are in the chord that you're playing, you're fine. You don't really have to worry about it. So you don't have to think about, I need to change a chord real quick just to make sure that note is in the chord. The note doesn't necessarily have to be in the chord that you're playing, especially if you're passing through it. If it's passing to leading into something else. So just kind of talking about some music. These things kind of come to me. Another one that kind of got me the other day was, we've been doing this duo stuff, the bass player and I, to play some sort of, just to have some other extra work and have some extra gigs in the summertime. And a lot of venues, they don't necessarily want loud drums and everything. So it's kind of nice to play some of this more low-key, jazzy, big band stuff. And either do it as instrumental, maybe sing a little bit. But there's a section in here where it's doing this to me. Right here in the bridge where it goes to an F sharp. And this is probably just me being silly. Where the F, if you play an A diminished seventh, there's no F. It's like right there. It's like, well, you're singing this, but The F sharp is up there. But again, this is an example of, this is kind of based on a fake book version of it. And if you listen to the original recordings of this stuff, the vocals are kind of hitting the note before the diminished chord comes into it. And that F sharp is definitely there. Oh, that F natural, sorry, is definitely there for the A sharp minor 7. Right there. And that's just more of a passing chord. Back to that. And that just gives you kind of an example of what you can expect when you look at these charts. They are guidelines. They're not really designed to be 100% a chart, unless it is like a full big band chart or whatever. But that's supposed to be written exactly. But even then, a lot of that stuff is just kind of, hey, that's what rehearsals are for, right? Let's see. Oh, the modes too. That's what the other thing I was going to go over. So actually, let me bring back up a song. The Putting on the Ritz is a good example of where I can show you of kind of a mode idea. So a mode is basically, you know, you have Ionian, Dorian, Lydian, Phrygian, Mixolydian. I can't remember the Greek names, but the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you know. And so with something like that, if you're playing an F minor, you can always play, and you're playing a solo over something like this. You have the F minor there. You don't have to just play, you know. You don't have to just play the minor scale all the time. You can think of you can play over the pattern. You think of the pattern of, say, A flat, and you can still play those notes, especially the relative major, right? So everything can be, all your modes can be played in your major scale pattern. All it is just starting on the next note, the note of the next chord. So if you wanted to play Dorian mode, then you just start on the second note. Right? So if you're in C, right? That's major scale, Dorian, major scale. Major scale, Dorian. The third. That's really all that it is. And so you're kind of bouncing around those notes, and you can kind of play that pattern. And then all of a sudden you're over this, if you're C and E minor 7, you can just play around that. Back to the C, or back to the major, depending on whatever key or the progression is. So if you have something like that, and you're just playing the... here over the major. And just being able to think in that pattern, at least for me, as just opens up the, you know, visually, like, oh, I'm very familiar with this pattern, but I just start on that note, and just become everything. Just for me, it just clicked, and it was made it easier for me to think about when a chord progression changes, especially when you're improvising. Then you can just kind of start on that note, but it stay roughly within that pattern, and that's why it does help to learn different scales in different areas of the neck. So if you're up here, then you can just, I can go back to this mode and go back to this pattern and this pattern and this scale, and you can think about the listen to the music and feel it as it comes at you, and not have to worry too much about making sure that you're playing the exact scale that's appropriated to the chord or whatever, or doing the, you know, I'm over a G chord, so I'm going to play a pentatonic G, and then I go to a C, and then I play a pentatonic C, and so on and so forth, which, it works, but to go to the next level, so to speak, that's something you can always, you can implement. And playing to backing tracks is very helpful. Playing to the individual songs is very helpful. Of course, you can have backing tracks with chord changes and everything, and that's great. If you can get a backing track to the actual song, what I used to do is just, you can go online and just get MIDI files of your favorite song. And yeah, it doesn't sound the best, but the chords are there, and then you can at least practice over whatever, practice over the structure of the tune, and just practice your soloing. I do that for originals. If I want to have a specific solo, I'll record my, song, and then I'll just loop the section where the solo is and keep going round and round until I come up with something I like, and that's it. All right. So I had a couple of questions actually earlier this week, and I don't know if I responded. It was mostly related to that delay video that I did. And one of them was somebody asked about, do I have the Rockabilly B sets or settings? And I'm not really sure what they meant by that, but the photos in the video, at least for the Rockabilly setting, is that's what you're seeing most of the time. I did for that sleepwalk section, I didn't put the correct photo in there. So I'll show it to you now. And I did make a post of it. And I'll show you the different settings. I mean, for the RE20 and the 301, basically the same, very similar as far as the settings go. That's huge. And these pedals are very sensitive. I mean, just the tiniest little movement on the delay pedals, on any of them, it just completely changes it. So for let's see. So for the RE20 here, I'll just show you. This is what I found works the best, roughly. You don't have to worry about this. That's just the reverb. The input volume, this thing, I try to keep it roughly at 12 o'clock. If you crank it, it can push your amp quite a bit. It can be a little add a lot of distortion to it, and it's not always pleasant. Sometimes it works, and you just have to kind of play with that and see what you like. If you a little more saturation, but sometimes it gives you almost, I don't know, a digital breakup that isn't too pleasant. Of course, the echo volume, that's your mix. That's how much you're getting overall. So if you turn that down, that's going to turn it off completely. The intensity is how many times you're going to hear the repeat. So if you put this really low, you're just going to get bop bop. It's just going to be one, and you'll hear it. So if you want, what I try to get is that, I think I have it set here on this. That's on there. I have my Pro Tools set up here for that setting. Yeah, it's there. Just a couple of quick little delays. That tends to work for me because I don't really have to fool with this too much. If I'm playing the bulk of whatever, anything from a 2-beat to a slow tune, to a rockabilly tune, to a straight rock, whatever, it doesn't matter. That setting tends to work really well for me. Some people like the a little slower delay with less of them, it's really up to you however you want to do it. For the repeat rate, again, that's just how fast they are together. So that's where you would adjust that. And I put this on number 2. Number 1, forget it's, you can't get it fast enough, so you have to go, or it's too fast. I can't remember which way it goes. I think it's too fast that way if you go to 1. And of course you can, this here, the reverb echo setting, 5, 6, and 7, and 8 are the same as these with added reverb. So if you have it here, doesn't matter what you do here, the reverb's not going to work. And of course you can do reverb only. These extra, I forget what these do. They're kind of like a weird kind of like up, 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 up. An extra like a strange delay sound, which isn't present, I don't believe, on the RE20. I mean the 301. So that's something unique to this. I don't know if it's actually on the original 201 or not, but anyway, those are the basic settings for the Rockabilly stuff. And then for, what is it? Oh, this one. For the Mystery Brain, same idea. Tape mix, that's your volume. Repeat rate, how fast, how many there's going to be. Your time, that's how, the speed of it. And this thing is very sensitive, and as you notice, there's no, markings or anything. There isn't on the RE20 either. Where at least with the 301, there are lines all around the knob, the dials, so you can. It's easier for me to find where it is. I used to take the pedals and just make a Sharpie and make a mark. But what I've noticed is when you play in different rooms, it changes what you're hearing, and I would always adjust it. And so then I just stopped doing that. But right here, roughly, kind of, roughly around like 8 o'clock, 7, 8 o'clock, something like that. And then the repeat rate is roughly about here. If you go too much, it's very, very sensitive. I mean, just the tiniest turn of the knob will either make it way too fast or way too slow. This is supposed to simulate tape warble and drag. And when you're playing with this quick of a delay, I don't really notice it all that much. It's kind of there if you slow it down. Even if you I have the depth cranked up and I don't really notice too much of it. Now, if I slow the delay down a little bit, that's when you really start to notice it. And then it's actually not, you can get a semi-chorus effect when you do that. But that's roughly what I do for there. And then tape mix, this will just depend on the room. Again, if it's too much, just turn it down. You got your settings, and you can just kind of bring it in. You start playing something faster, you're playing a 2-beat or whatever, and you're doing really fast. It can get really washy real quick. So you have to, sometimes it's best to either just turn it off completely, just hit the echo, just turn it off, or just turn it down a little bit. For the sleepwalk settings on this one, I usually just turn this off. You could turn it down, but anytime I have to fool with a pedal, that's time I'm not playing. So I don't want to leave too much dead air in between songs. So every time, if I want to play a slower type delay setting, I just click it off, so I don't have to worry about it, because otherwise it sounds like tape drag. It's not pleasant. And then roughly, right here about, 1 o'clock, somewhere there. And these stay the same pretty much all the time. A lot of these settings, the preamp and the bass cut, this will depend on your guitar and your amplifier. I just kind of bring it up about here. Roughly, that seems to work. The more you bring it up, the more saturation you're going to get, the more you'll get a little more touch sensitivity, but it will also, it could cause more feedback. The bass cut is what it is. It'll cut out some of your low end. And then, of course, this clicks it on and off. This is a boost. So if you want or need a boost and you have everything, you're trying to play low and you've got everything set, but you need to be a little bit louder, just click that. It'll distort and give you a nice. It's kind of nice, actually. I've used it a couple times. For the RE20 sleepwalk settings, or what I was saying in there, the slower settings, sleepwalk settings, I change. This is not it. This is not it. This is it. As you can see, I've changed the repeat rate so it's slower, and I put the intensity. I think is roughly the same. Echo volume. I do switch this to repeat 3 because you can't get it quite slow enough if it's still on 1. So you got to flip this, turn that, and then you're ready to go. And you just have to kind of play with it and play with the tempo. So if I were using this just here, where is this? This tape echo, and I wanted to get that same thing digitally, like that's the I'll turn the mix up so you can really hear it. So with this is, I believe, this is your how many times. So that would be like your repeat rate, or your repeat. So then I would just adjust this down slower and just kind of listen for where it. That's too fast. Still too fast. Closer. I've never really messed with it on this. I've never really messed with it here, but you can see even here it's very sensitive. Got a weird tape drag sound to it. Yeah, one of these digital things. Still a little too slow there. But anyway, you can get the idea of it. You just kind of have to play around with it. The pedals are a lot easier to use than these things. But roughly when you get it in those settings, that's really all you need to do. Just kind of listen to it. It depends on the tempo, too, of how you're going to play these things. And I think I saved it. No, I didn't. I went back to that. Okay. That's pretty much it. As far as the RE20, the 301 goes, it's pretty much the same. Pretty much the same as this. I don't think I had anything crazy different. Oh, hello. Thank you for enjoying. Yeah, just kind of shooting the breeze here and talking about whatever's coming to me. And trying to answer any questions that people have asked that I've seen in the comments. I've been crazy busy this week. I haven't been able to get back to everybody, but trying to get the next video out and let's see. Okay, so I'll show you here just for the sake of it, so you can see the 301. bit. Oh. So this is, I mean, I've tried to zoom in on the settings, of course, for Setzer, but it's hard to see. It's kind of blurry, but roughly this is what I've from what I can hear and everything. It's as you can see, it's very similar to the 201 or the RE20, the 201. So you have your repeat rate down here, intensity, and then your volume. This is the delay on this thing is so much more pronounced, I guess you could say, compared to any delay pedal that I've ever used. It's something to the tape, you know. And when you have the repeat rate kind of roughly around 12, 12 o'clock, as you can see. And you can see the lines there, see? It's much easier to kind of guide that than it is to, have the nothing. I wish they would put something around these dials so it would be much easier for us to find. The intensity, that's how many times it's, you're going to hear it. So 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, into infinity. It'll just feed back if you crank it. And that's for the Rockabilly, the fast Rockabilly setting. That thing. And then the sleepwalk, it's the same exact thing. The slower thing. Number 3, put it on 3. Turn the repeat rate down. Turn the intensity down. So it's only doing bop, 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 And yeah, those are the settings for the most part for all of the and I'm sure any delay pedal would be the same. I used to use the what was it called? The Dan Electro Real Echo. That was great. It would just and you would do the same thing. Instead of having I remember right, it had a slider on it instead of a dial. And I would put markers on it. This is slow, this is fast, this is single. Because if you're doing something like like Bebopalula, the one I was the delay setting is a little different. It's not that fast. It's a little bit slower. And I believe it's less times. Hard to hear today. Whatever. I go over that in the video. I think I played that on last stream too. It's always fun. That's one of my favorite solos ever growing up listening to Rockabilly. And it's great doing the channel to learn, making the videos and learning all of the different, classic solos. Especially the Cliff Gallup stuff. Trying to think if there was what other. I mean, Race with the Devil. I never learned the actual any of the Race with the Devil stuff. So I used to play it. I did used to play that. Oh man, I totally forgot it. Yeah, I totally forgot it. Another cool one is the Baby Blue Eyes riff. That's Johnny Burnett. That's another thing. I know I've mentioned this many times before. Playing rhythm, especially with the rockabilly stuff, and anything that swings, if you're playing the walking bass line, you don't want to. I've seen some players where they just kind of rely on the delay to create the eighth notes, and you don't really want to do that. You want to make sure that you're playing the eighth notes with your pick. Right? You can go back and forth between the strings like that if you want to. And mess around with the different notes. I've always liked the octave thing. And the string there. Always, and palm muting, especially if you're singing or the singer or you're backing somebody up. So it's not just blasting over the whole band. And that also can create the dynamic too when you're playing. If you're palm muting, you're controlling the dynamic, and you don't have to rely on boost pedals and all of these things. And you can just play, and then when they're singing, or you're singing, quiet down so you can hear what you're singing. And then when you go to a solo, you can play the same thing, but you're just boosting it up and you're controlling it, as opposed to relying on pedals or knob, turning your amp up or down or whatever. And that's the great thing about having a real tube amp too, as opposed to just some sort of like amp modeler, is that you can still get the dynamics with it, but those modders, those amp modders, they sound like what the amp sounds like recorded. It doesn't sound like what the amp sounds like live, and that's the difference really between the two. And I got another video coming too. I know I've talked about it for a while now, but I finally got the script done for it, for the Bassman. The history of my first History of Gear series is just I'm gonna start with something that I'm somewhat familiar with, and of course I own one, is the Fender Bassman. So I'm going back to the very beginning of the development of the amplifiers from Fender, the reason why they created the Bassman, and what other bass amps there were at the time, which at the time there was only really Ampeg, and those were the only bass amps available. So, and Fender didn't have a bass amp, even though they had a bass guitar. They released that. They only had their Pro Series amplifier, and then they eventually came out with the Bassman, which was originally just a 115 24 watt. I think the first one was 18, and they kept going up 24, 50, and so on and so forth, until they got the classic Tweed with the 410s, and eventually went to this model and kept changing it and got the piggyback model, which is what this is. And apparently this model, I have two different ones. This is a 63, no, sorry, 62. Got a rough Tolex brown face control panel, and then the other one is the white Tolex with the gold sparkle grill cover, and that was apparently just a 6-month run of a special version of the amp. I didn't know that until I started researching that. But essentially, they're the same. It's just a cosmetic difference. Then they flipped over to the black Tolex and the silver screen and all of that. But everybody used them for guitar. I mean, and yeah, they did use them for bass too, but yeah, the guitar players used them all the time. And it wasn't until later, like the late 60s, then they came out with the Super Bassman, and that's when you had the 215s, and that was essentially a bass amp. That was the real, competing with like the SVTs and stuff. Which is insane to have to carry something like that around. And it's amazing how the amplifiers now, you can get an 800 watt bass amplifier and the head is just like this, as opposed to the massive. I have a playing upright, I have an SWR, I want to say it's 700 watt, Yeah, 700 watt head, and then the 410 cab, and that sounds pretty good. All right. Well, yeah. Apologize for my kind of lack of direction here today. Had a busy week and a long gig yesterday, and I've got next week, like I said, I'm gonna have to move. I'll move the stream up till about 3, and then I'll hopefully have that other video done by the middle of next week. And yeah, keep it going. I thank everybody again for, checking out the live stream, and of course, the likes and subscribes to the channel, and the channel continues to grow. And of course, all the questions in the comments, I will get back to you guys on any comments that you have. I just haven't been able to lately, but I always try to make sure that I can do that. So I'm just going to kind of play around a little bit. If you have anything else, if anybody wants to add anything or have any questions, just let me know, and I will answer them. See if I can come up with any tricks. Let's see. Well, here's something. If you're finger picking over certain keys, you play an E9. Yeah, you can have to do this. Anytime you can play there's an open string in the chord, you can kind of play off of that. Kind of just add a little bit of something to it. Let's see what else we got. If you're ever interested in doing these runs like this, stuff like that, I mean, honestly, it's just really practice, but it's mostly just pull-offs, and you're just going down a scale. And that's would be in C, right? Adding that flat seventh in there. And it's always good to have your thumb positioned. You can see, like, directly parallel, like, to your hand. So you don't want to have it, like, over here. Trying to do that. You're not going to be able to really get it. And it's going to feel awkward at first. And if you feel like you can't reach, just move the wrist. Anytime if you're having trouble reaching a chord, like a bar chord or any sort of stretch like that, just push your wrist up a little bit, and that usually helps. And then keep your thumb as parallel as you can. Now, obviously, when you're up here on the high neck, especially with these cutaways, it's hard to. Then you're limited to what you can do. Sometimes you have to, even as with the cutaways, you have to bring your whole hand over here. There's just no physical way to get up there. So you're doing the best you can. Of course, playing a Strat or a Tele, it's much easier. or a Gibson. But yeah, that's basically this a lot of those runs that you hear, it's based on that. F. Wherever you want to play it. You're in G. And it's that same thing you see with the bebop scale. You're going to see that all the time. And you can play that in the country 2 beats, like, you know, whatever. Oops. Or you can do something like this. And you do stuff like that in any key or whatever, and that's also where you can do a lot of these runs. And you can do it in a major scale too. But that scale, I mean, that was G, right? But I don't know, that, to me, this scale here just lends itself better to playing a lot of those runs. And you notice if you start watching anybody playing stuff like that, they're usually playing off of that scale. But it's just a major scale, just played in a different position. It's always good to learn the patterns, and then it helps you along the way. I myself there's a lot of extra, like, natural, like, harmonic scales and things like that I've never really delved into too much, but there's just so much music out there, and so many different ways of approaching all of this that there isn't one right way to do anything. All right. Well, I'd keep it going for at least try to keep the streams going for at least an hour, and then we'll go from there. I appreciate everybody guys that are hanging out here, and I'll just kind of play a little bit, and then we'll go for a little bit longer, and then I will call it for the day, and see you guys next week a little bit earlier. And thank you guys again for all the support. I really do appreciate it. Thank you guys. Lots of fun. All right. Thank you guys again, and we'll see you next time, and see you guys in the next video. Until next week at 3 o'clock, have a good one, everybody.